Great. So welcome, everyone. We're glad to have you here. My name is Liz Dykman. I'm co-founder of Midwest Artist Project Services and facilitating the conversation today. Before we start today's session, How to Sell in Multiples, I want to take some time to introduce MAPS as well as our speaker, Sarah Kelley. So a little bit about Midwest Artist Project Services, or MAPS. We offer free and low-cost resources for working artists in all disciplines, collectives, and emerging arts organizations in the St. Louis region and beyond. MAPS aims to promote new and sustainable growth in the arts through funding opportunities, consultation, and providing access to best solutions for current issues that affect artists. Today, we're going to be presenting Mapping It Out. It's a year-long series of short virtual presentations on best practices and simple things you can do to grow your art practice now. Each month, MAPS board members discuss diverse topics and answer your questions. Presentations are held the second Wednesday of each month from 12 to 12:30. Registration is free, and we welcome $5 suggested donations. I'll share the link, the donation link in the chat in just a second. We do have a couple of ground rules. So first, Sarah is going to present for about 20 minutes, and we'll save a couple of minutes at the end for questions. During the presentation, please do keep yourself muted. You're more than welcome to submit questions in the chat box to Sarah. Just make sure you indicate that because we'll know people will be talking to each other as well. Feel free to also use the chat box to discuss with one another. And then after the presentation, you will receive a survey. Please make sure to fill it out, as it's very valuable feedback for MAPS. And I'm very excited now to introduce Sarah Kelley, our presenter for today. Sarah is one of the co-creators at Union Studio, a local shop with 2 brick and mortar locations, selling everything from handmade soap to fine art. Union Studio represents over 130 St. Louis artists. As a co-creator, Sarah curates both shops and works closely with artists to grow their businesses. Before entering the art world, Sarah studied sociology and women and gender studies at Brandeis University and worked in nonprofits. On her days off, you can find Sarah fighting the weeds in her garden, reading for her book club, or failing at training her misbehaved dog. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sarah. Thank you so much. We are so excited for your presentation today.
Thanks, everyone. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about this. So this is something that I do all day, every day with all the artists that we meet with, is kind of discuss these topics. So I'm going to start a little bit telling you about my job and what I do in the store, just so you can have some context for where my advice is coming from. And then we'll talk about why I think artists should consider developing products or selling in multiples, things to consider when doing that. And then we'll have some times for question and answers. So a little bit about me. I was joking earlier, like co-creator isn't that specific of a job description. So I wanted to talk to you guys about what I do on a day-to-day basis. So like my bio said, my shop has 2 brick and mortar locations. We have one in the Tower Grove area and one in Webster Groves. And we sell everything from handmade soap to fine art. There's jewelry, leather goods, textiles, but then we also sell like paintings and sculptures and things like that. So on a day-to-day basis, what I do at work is I work closely with my business partner and we curate the stores. We select everything that's in here, but I also do the business side, so I pay our taxes and do the payroll. I'm also a boss. So we have 6 employees, and so I make the schedule and sign the checks and do all that sort of thing. But the relevant part for here today about what I do at work all day is I try to help artists. And artist is a broad term in our space. We do work with fine artists, but we also work with a lot of makers. We call them all artists. But before we bring somebody's work into the space, we have a sit-down meeting with them. So of all 140 people whose work we carry, I've sat down with them and learned about their creative practice. How do you make? Where do you make? How do you sell? Do you mostly do direct sales? Do you do wholesale? Do you do online? And in those conversations that we have with them about what they're up to and how they go about making, we talk about pricing, we talk about building collections or creating bodies of work, we talk about product development. And then for our newer artists, I think one of the cool things about what we do is we work with people that are established and have been selling for 40 years. And we also work with people that have literally never sold publicly before. So part of what we do when we meet with artists is talk to them about how to sell in a space like ours, which means like creating a line sheet and understanding minimums and things like that. If those words don't make sense to you, we'll talk about it a little bit later. But that's kind of what my day-to-day job looks like. Our space is not quite a gallery, not quite a store, not quite a collective. It's kind of a merging of all of those things. So that is where I'm coming from when I'm talking to you guys today about why I think you should develop a product, hence the changing of the slide. So some of the folks that we work with, they only make original work. And that is all they do. And that is totally fine if that is a choice for you. But for me, in the 140 artists that we have worked with and work with currently, I see a lot of reasons why it makes sense for people to do product development. And when I say product, it could mean all sorts of things, right? It could be making prints of your originals. It could be making stickers, making phone cases, making pillows, making scarves. So that's what I mean by product. And we can talk details later about certain things if you want in the question and answer. But I think there are 3 big reasons why it makes a lot of sense for people to do more than just original work. First and foremost, I think products are a wonderful, affordable entry point for people that support the arts. So not everybody can afford to buy original art or has the space for it or the means for it. And so I think that creating products in a thoughtful way that resonates well with you personally and with why you make and what you make can be a really wonderful entry point for people to start collecting or to start supporting you. We have worked with artists here at this shop that their originals are thousands and thousands of dollars, but they sell $5 stickers. So folks that can't afford to buy that original piece or don't want to buy it, or for whatever reason, there's still a place for them to engage with you and engage with your work. Second, I have found that having products can help artists build their businesses. I never thought that I'd be official enough to use the word diversify. But if you only make original work, you only have one way to sell your work. And something that we found out in COVID times, right, is that artists need to be flexible and artists need different avenues, right, for people to reach them. And so, if you have a product line, it lends itself to people buying at lower price points, people being able to buy online. It just gives you a different revenue stream rather than just having original work. And another reason why it helps build your business is if you think about creating a print or something like that. If you make an original and you make a print off of that original, or you use that same imagery on a product, you only have to make that original one time, right? So you can spend your other time making more originals while the image that you already have is still making you money off of prints, off of stickers, off of pillows, whatever it is that you want to make. And so you have 2 different avenues, right? 2 different revenue streams coming into your business. And like I said before, at different points in people's lives, at different points in the world, things, people are gravitate towards different items or buying original work or whatever it is. And so, if you have these structures in place in your business, which I feel that any artist that is selling their work, they are not only creating, but they're also running their own small business. Having multiple streams in your business can just be helpful for you and helpful for you weathering changes in the world, changes in your personal life. And so I've just found it's a great way to make people's creative practice sustainable, which is my third point. My business partner and I talk a lot about what sustainable creative practice is. And for us, it means a lot of things to a lot of different people. It can mean having time to rest. It can mean having time to spend with your family. But for me, a lot of what we talk to artists about is financial stability, and having a product line that you can sell yourself or that you could sell to other stores, as well as making original work. To me, that lends itself to being able to pay your bills. And so we recommend it to everybody that we work with. Not everybody takes us up on it, but for the people that have taken us up on the idea or considered it, I don't know that anybody's regretted having multiple access points to their works, multiple revenue streams supporting their businesses. And overall, I think it's a good idea. Okay, so next, I want to talk a little bit about, okay, if you've decided you want to make the leap, right? You want to do the product development. What kind of questions do you need to be asking yourselves? And my business partner and I, we're pretty notorious for asking a lot of questions, but not having a lot of answers. And I do think that's because each artist needs to filter these ideas through what they're comfortable with, through what they have time for, through what they know how to do, through what resonates with them. I know not every artist is going to want to turn their gorgeous original painting into a phone case. That doesn't necessarily translate for everybody, but for some people it does. So I think my job is to present the questions and then for folks to think about what makes sense for them. So when you want to think about creating a product, the first question is, what kind of product makes sense with your creative practice? So is there something about what you do or what you make or how you do it that lends itself to becoming something that is easily replicated, and that you can get your hands on quite a few of? So obviously, we talk about turning paintings into prints. That is a great product for somebody who draws or paints, right? You can scan your painting, you can scan your image, you can take a photo of it, right? You turn it into a print, and then you can sell multiple of those over and over and over again. So, thinking about, what is your subject matter? What is your medium? What are your customers interested in? And how does that relate to your brand as an artist, which I know is another term that people might not want to say they have a brand. But, just thinking about, is there any item that is a lower dollar amount that's easily replicated, that makes sense with what you do, that you could create? The next question then is going to be, how is that item going to be manufactured? Do you want to make it yourself? Do you know how to make it yourself? If you don't, is it something that you want to invest your time and energy in learning how to do? And have you weighed that against what else you could be spending your time doing in your creative practice? Something that we ask all of the artists that we work with is, do you do commission work? And I don't care what the answer is. Some people love commissions, some people don't do commissions. But something that's a question that a lot of the folks that we work with haven't asked themselves is, if you take on a commission piece and say it takes you 30 hours to do, if you were spending those 30 hours doing something else, whether that's creating a different original work, creating an original work that you could create a product from, working on product development for your business, are you considering what you could be spending your time doing, making that commission when you price that commission. That's sort of a tangent, but I think it's also relevant to thinking about the value of your time as you're trying to grow your creative practice, grow your creative business. And how this relates to what we're talking about is like, yeah, it might be really fun to like learn how to hand cut and make waterproof stickers, you know, or something like that. Like that is a cool thing. And we have folks that do that. But if you're only selling those stickers for $5 a pop, does it actually make sense for you to hand make a sticker versus having somebody else create that for you? Other things to consider with product development, especially if you're interested in building out your own website with the products you make, is the size and the weight of those items. Again, you don't want to be creating more problems for yourself as you're thinking about adding this into your business. So stickers, prints, all very lightweight things, easy to ship. You only have to have one size envelope, those types of things. But just know that the more products you create, if you're going to put them in an online store, you have to think about shipping them. And what is that going to mean in terms of what kind of shipping boxes are you going to need? How much tape are you going to need? You know, all those types of things add up. If you decide you aren't going to make the product yourself and you'd like to get it manufactured from somebody else, a couple more things to consider. You know, local is obviously near and dear to my heart. Everything that we carry is local. And so when we can, if we are making prints, stickers, cards, things like that, we look to local businesses to do it. So if you're saying, okay, I'd like to make a card pack out of my images, is there a local company that does it? I think is a great place to start. It's also a great way to test quality control of what you're doing. If you just have to, you know, drive up to the store to see it before they print 100 of them, that's a lot better than having 100 of them come to you in the mail, and you're like, this looks terrible. So is there a local company that does it? Other things to consider. Are there minimums on the order, right, that make it financially viable for you? If you want to sell your print for $25 and you print one and it costs you $20, that's not a huge amount of profit that you're making off of that. So thinking about, okay, well, if I print 10 at a time, my cost is only going to go up this much and I'll have this much product ready and waiting. And there's a benefit, right? There's an analysis for you to do. How much product do you want to be sitting on? How much money do you want to have out on having developed something versus, you know, what is the benefit to getting your cost down, so that the products become more profitable for you. So that's where minimums come into play, right? How many do you have to order from the company for them to even make your product for you? But how many do you want to order at a time to make sure that your math is making sense? Other things to consider when you have another company make for you is, do they have a design or setup fee? That should play into the cost of what you're making, right? So you need to have your product, your design or setup fee. Do they charge you shipping to get it to you? And all of those things should weigh in as you're setting your retail price on whatever the product is that you're making. The last things to consider about having somebody else make work for you is the quality of the product, right? It's going to have your name on it. So do you approve of the ingredients or materials that they use? Do you have any ethical concerns with the business? Again, no right answers, just lots of questions to ask yourself as you're thinking about doing this. Okay. Last thing, before we get to our questions, is I would like to talk about pricing. So now you've like gotten over the hurdle, right? You're like, okay, I want to make a product. I have an idea for a product. I have a manufacturer for that product. Now the question is like, what are you going to sell it for? And, you know, a lot of the artists that we talk with, they look at people that are making similar things, right? I make cups, this person makes cups, our cups should be the same price. And that is right. In some ways, it's a great starting point to see what your prices should be. But again, it's the pricing question has to go through your own personal filter, right? Does this make sense as a whole with what I make? And that doesn't necessarily mean that your originals and your products have to be a similar price. They can be a vastly different price. But is there a reason for that? Have you thought about it? You know, will your customers buy it for that price? You know, and so it's, again, lots of questions, but things that for you to evaluate and consider. What are comparable things selling for? Does it make sense with my work, my creative practice, my business, my brand as a whole? And does that price reflect the quality of what I'm presenting, right? An archival print versus a non-archival print can take a different price point. Other things to consider, what are my packaging costs? Again, we talked a little bit about this in terms of shipping, but if you're going to develop a product, you don't want to get all the way to the end of it and realize like, crap, I didn't realize this needs to be in a box and I have to buy 50 of those boxes at a time from this random company in this random place. And now all my profits got eaten up by the box that I have to put this item in. So I would just work through step by step as you're thinking about your price. You know, we haven't even mentioned like, what should I be paid for my time, for my talent, for my idea? Is this product funding something else that I know I'm not going to be able to sell, but I'm dying to do? You know, those are all of the questions that we tell people to consider when pricing an item. And we'll talk a little bit about this as my last point about building wholesale relationships. But for a product that somebody wants to sell to me, right, that's called a wholesale relationship. And that standard in that realm, right, is that if you have a print and you want to sell it for $20, I'm going to buy it from you for $10. So if wholesale, right, is what you want to do with your items, you want to sell them to other shops, you want to sell them in gallery stores, you want to sell them on Fair, which is a wholesale marketplace. As you're setting your retail price, you need to take that wholesale arrangement into consideration. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you just say, well, I guess I'll just double the price, right? Because then you might run into, well, this doesn't match the value. This doesn't match the quality. This doesn't match what other people are selling similar products for. And so there's no right or wrong answer in terms of pricing, but there's just lots to consider when you're doing that. Let's see here. Okay. Now that you've established a product, we've talked about price. Now let's talk about what you can do with those products. So the first thing I mentioned earlier in the session was you can establish an online store. So if you have a product, you know you make money when you sell it, you know it's light, you know it's easy to ship, you can put it in your online shop. I have found lots of our artists only have 3 or 4 items in their online store. And again, it doesn't have to be a huge undertaking, but if somebody is perusing your website, they love your work, and there's an opportunity to buy something on there, it's an easier transition for them, right, to click shop and pay versus, oh, let me DM or email this person to see if they have anything that's in my budget that I could add to my collection. So you could build an online store. The other thing that you can do is participate in pop-ups and art fairs and other shows in your community. Around St. Louis, there are sales all the time. And again, it doesn't mean that you can't have original work up in your booth. But if somebody's really admiring your original work, They love it. It caught their eye. It's hanging in the back of the booth and it's just stunning. It might not be their price point, but if they look down on the table and there's a couple of stickers or a card pack or a print there, they might pull the trigger on that. And then the last thing is that you can build wholesale relationships. So like I alluded to before, if you have product with good pricing that accounts for selling that product to somebody else so they can sell it for you, again, which is a great way to diversify your business. It doesn't take any of our artists any time to sell all of the work that I sell for them. It's a great way to again, get more eyes on your work and have sales that don't require more time and energy from you. I know we're running out of time real quick, but if you are interested in building a wholesale relationship, I would suggest just like Googling what's a line sheet. And a line sheet is essentially something that an artist presents me with that says, hi, here are my product offerings. Here is the wholesale price. Here is the suggested retail price. Here is how many of them you have to buy from me in order to get the item. So some people say, yes, you can have my stickers, but you can't just buy one sticker. You have to buy 10 stickers. And then also people set like minimums, right? You have to spend at least $200 with me to get an order in general. And then other things, again, to consider when you're building out wholesale relationships are talking about payment expectations. Do you expect payment up front? Is it a pre-order for items you already have on hand? Is it something that you need to order? And then what's the turnaround time? And then who covers shipping on that? So I know that was a lot of information. I hope it all made sense. I know I was like flying through it and I think I flipped the slide early at one point, but anyways, I'm happy to answer questions about any of it.
Great.
So.
We have a couple in the chat already. So I'm just going to go in order. So the first one is, do you have an example of a product line production budget you could share?
Great question. Ooh, I don't. You know, I think considering how many you think you could sell reasonably on your own is a great place to start. You know, if you only sell a couple of items a year, I don't know that I would necessarily recommend buying 100 prints, right? Because you're going to have those prints forever if you only sell 2 or 3 things a year. So what I would suggest is having a plan for how you intend to sell them. Are you going to sell them directly? Are you going to sell them on your websites? Is this going to be the kick in the butt that you needed to go to that local shop or to that gallery to try to get them in there? So I would think about how many items you could reasonably sell yourself and in those other avenues that we talked about. And then I would work backwards, right? Because you don't ever, doing this sort of product development should be a benefit to you. It should be a benefit to your business, and it should be a benefit to your bottom line, right? It should make you money. And yes, sometimes you're going to make a product and it's going to be a bust. But I would work backwards from at what point do you break even? At what point do you break money? And I don't think you often have to spend a whole lot of money to get samples or to test things out or to do the research. And I would just make sure that your numbers look really good before you pull the trigger on buying a bunch of something.
Thank you. I'm just going to read off both of these questions at the same time. So the next one is, have you seen any good examples of sliding scale on products? And then the second one is, do you have any experience with print on demand?
Yeah. So in terms of sliding scale, we don't do sliding scale necessarily, right? If somebody comes to you with how much money they have, right? And you determine if the price is going to fluctuate. I don't have a lot of experience with that. And it's not because, I think there's anything wrong with it, but a lot of what we try to do in our business is actually let folks know that prices aren't arbitrary, right? There's a reason that I have set my work at these prices, and this is how much handmade or locally made works really cost. And that's why I think more so than a sliding scale, I think it's important to have a collection with a variety of price points. Like I said, I have an artist that sells $5 stickers in our store. We have $100 prints of hers in our store, but her originals are literally thousands and thousands of dollars. And those I don't have. But having that kind of spread, I think, again, to me, it makes a little bit more sense to have a structure that you can stick to as opposed to a sliding scale, but have multiple entry points in your structure so that anybody can support you when they want to, but that you don't have to make a determination every time somebody wants to buy from you. How much should I charge this person? Because it becomes, I think, a little exhausting, and you might end up being more generous than you should be and undersell yourself. And then the other question, what was the other question?
The other question was, do you have any experience with print on demand?
Print on demand. So we don't do print on demand, but I know some of our artists on their websites do print on demand. And I think that they have had success with that. Again, that's a great way to not have money out before you have a sale. The only thing I would say about that is being really communicative with your customers and the people that are buying from you about what kind of turnaround time they can expect. And shipping is insane these days. And a lot of places that do print on demand, particularly around the holidays, which if you are going to have products is when you can expect to have the majority of your sales, they get overwhelmed. So I think it's a great thing to do from a financial standpoint, that you don't have to have inventory waiting on hand that you've already paid for and you're hoping that somebody will buy. But I do recommend giving yourself a lot of wiggle room in when somebody can expect their print to arrive, because you don't ever want somebody to support you and then have a sour taste in their mouth because it took too long to get there.
And then this will probably have to be our last question because we are past time, because this is such a good conversation. But so as an artist, I find my art is somewhat different from my product content and concept. Any suggestions towards this? My product sales, pardon me, my product sell more frequently because of the price point and a little pandering. Does the separation hinder me as an artist? I hope I did that justice. And actually, Brian, if you wanted to ask that one in person, I welcome you to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, I was basically saying that sometimes I have, big art, the stuff that you put in galleries that's sometimes like pushing conceptual concerns a lot different than like your product. Like I do products that's just, this is a cute thing, and that cute thing sells really well, but that conceptual thing that sells at that's priced a little bit higher sometimes doesn't sell as well as making a bunch of cute things. So should I just keep making cute things to sell more, or do I focus on just keep making the big art as a way of kind of like having a really concise body of work that doesn't have these little secret cute things,
Yeah. I hear what you're saying, and I hear that concern. The way it filters through my brain is, if you're selling the cute stuff and and it's the price point and the imagery that's making people pull the trigger, I think that lends itself to you having a sustainable creative practice as an artist. If your cute stuff is making you money and letting you do more of your abstract fine art, conceptual work, I think that's okay. Now, I don't have a background in art, so maybe other people would say that's not okay. But I think that that is totally fine. Now, if you're worried that there's too much of a disconnect between your products and what you're making, I would spend some time with your conceptual pieces and think to yourself, is there any way to pull a piece of this idea or a piece of this imagery out and put it into a more, not necessarily palatable, but is there a way, right, to allude to the other in this product? And my guess is that there's probably some connections there. But no, I don't think that artists shouldn't be making money, because I think artists making money is what keeps them making, right, and keeps them contributing to our community. And so I'm never going to tell somebody that the thing that makes them money doesn't fit into their creative practice, because I think it does. I think it holds that space.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I am so excited we had this conversation today. I feel like it's, especially as we're coming up on the holidays, not only timely for lots of reasons, but it's been great to really just understand a little bit more about how to think about this, what questions to ask. So thank you so much. We greatly appreciate it. For everyone who's attending, the recording of this session will be put up on MAPS YouTube. And thank you all so much for coming today. If you have, any, pardon me, I meant to say, if you are interested in any of their MAPS services, like fiscal sponsorship or consultation, et cetera, please feel free to check out MAPS. Also, I am dropping one more time in the chat. If you feel like making a donation today, we have a $5 recommended donation. And thank you all again for coming today. Thank you, Sarah. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. It was fun.
All right. Bye, everyone. See you soon.